My name is Reinier de Graaf, and I would like to give a short presentation about my latest book. That book is titled Architect Verb, but contrary to what the title suggests, this is not a book about architecture, but rather a book about the language which is currently being used in relation to architecture. Let me try to explain. We all know the word architect. In grammatical terms, the word architect is a countable noun. It is a person whose job it is to design new buildings and make certain that they are built correctly. Sample sentence. After years of study, I'm sorry, Tim is a man, is now a fully fledged architect. Recently, however, we increasingly encounter the word architect as a verb to design and configure a software program or system. Few software packages were architected with Ethernet access in mind. That is obviously a definition that exists in the world of computing, as incidentally do many words from architecture, not just architect. The word arena, blueprint, construct, framework, foundation, model, platform, scaffolding, sphere, stage, structure, theater are all words, architectural terms, which have acquired a meaning in the domain of computing, strategy, consultancy, and all sorts of other more abstract professions where these words feature very, very prominently. So the architectural vocabulary obviously has a relevance beyond architecture itself. However, more recently, there is also an inflection of all of that. Words go out into the world, and then the world sends these words back into the domain of architecture in a kind of confused meaning. And that is what the book is mostly about. So, besides the world of computing, the word architect as a verb today also exists in architecture. What does it mean in architecture? Supposedly, it means the activity that architects are considered to engage in. I have to architect a solution that meets both the needs of the client and the constraints of the project budget. Not a very inspiring meaning, and one could wonder whether we have traded up as a result. The word architect as a noun is increasingly being replaced by the term built environment practitioner. Not a term that exists per se as such, and it's a term largely of which you have to construct the meaning as a result of sample sentences that you find in different places on the web. Built environment practitioners must lead the fight against climate change. Now, just for argument's sake, let's assume a environment practitioner is in fact an architect. And let's look again at the sample sentence. Architects must lead the fight against climate change. Right. There are many such words. There are many instances where essentially simple words are replaced by composite words or much, much longer words. You have built environment practitioner. There is also something like a successful building in the jargon. What is a successful building? A successful building is a building compliant with a certain measure of success, commonly unspecified. Therefore, a successful building is a or any building. There are more examples like this. View-based urbanism supposedly is urbanism practiced with a particular consideration for the optics which ensue in its wake. In other words, urbanism, you would expect that of urbanism in general. Real work, work that is real as opposed to work that is not. In other words, work. There is forward planning, which I guess is planning. There is end state vision, which I guess is goal. Drivers for change, a different word for problem. Key driver, a different word for idea. So it's very interesting. Normally, if you look at dictionary definitions, the definition is longer than the word it describes. Here we actually have the inverse. Here the terms are longer than the number of words needed to explain them. Visual design, another example. I guess that is design. And then there is such a thing as non-visual design, which I guess is a major waste of time. There is more than just funny examples. In my opinion, an operational logic behind all of this. There is an agenda behind all of this. And this is an agenda uh, closely linked to a particular aspect of the English language. More than in any other language, terms in English can simultaneously exist as a noun and a verb. And in some ways, that creates a wonderful kind of confusion. Let me give a few examples and how it operates. Architect is a noun. I've just given the definition. Architect is a verb. I've given the definition also earlier. The word concept is both an abstract idea, structuralism is a different concept, as it is a verb to generate concepts. Our team is concepting a whole new line of body products. The word design obviously is a set of drawings showing how something is to be made. It is also the act of designing, to make or draw plans for something. And even the work, very wonderfully in English, is both a verb, to work, to do a job, as it is a noun, a job done. And that probably is the explanation for the wonderful confusion that can exist at times in Anglophone meetings, particularly in the time of COVID, where there is a kind of perpetual confusion whether one participates presenting one's work or whether one attends to simply comment on other works. And this is a case here on this image where I guess everyone is presuming they're there to do the latter. More examples. Green, it goes further. Sometimes it's a threefold meaning. Green is a noun, an area planted with grass. Green is a verb, to make environmentally friendly. Green, in addition, is also an adjective. It's a color. We tend to forget that. So if you look at this, if you look at the confusion between verbs and nouns, if you look at the long terms replacing simple words, you can do a very interesting exercise where you translate English into English, or where you translate what you could call lay speak into prof speak. Conventional sentence. Architects will try to design green buildings to further improve the quality of the environment. In the new language, that becomes built environment practitioners, architects to green, green, green. Smart sustainability, mindful built environment practitioners, architect to green, green, green. The language almost becomes a form of Dada poetry, where words existed independent of meaning and only existed for the reason of the sound they made. But there is a more sinister side to all of this, in my opinion, and I would like to explain that with the next few examples. Terms, increasingly fewer times, emerge on their own. All terms, all conventional terms today seem to need an adjective. Design, we know it, is a noun, but increasingly we see design accompanied by adjective. People first design. What is people first design? People first design is design that puts people first. There is anticipatory design, design that preempts the future. There is narrative-driven design, design driven by a certain narrative. There is evidence-based design, design based on the application of knowledge and insights generated by precedents. There is emancipatory design, design with a specific focus on benefiting people disadvantaged because of disability, gender, and race. There is equitable design, design aimed at groups that have historically been underrepresented, taking into consideration gender, sexuality, race, ethnicity, nationality, and abilities. See also emancipatory design. Now, that is all good and well. This orgy of well-meaning, this orgy of virtuous adjectives also somehow has an inverse effect. Because if you have all these adjectives, what is left of design? Design, almost by default, without an adjectives, becomes the exact opposite of what all the adjectives described. Design becomes a nearsighted, whimsical, semi-immoral act with no rationale that hinders emancipation, is oblivious to the underrepresented, ignores the facts, and puts people last. And therefore, anybody associated with the act of design becomes a criminal in retrospect. And that is perhaps the explanation why so many architects try to save their own souls by posturing as viciously good people. RJ Associates, I mean, the irony couldn't be more palpable. And artist Daniel Boyd delivers Sydney Community Centre supposedly informed by Aboriginal concepts. RJ Associates designed Brooklyn's community centre to disrupt the racial wealth gap. Even the winner of the RIBA Gold Medal for Architecture is a viciously good person, a person who only recently delivered brutalist architecture and who now emphatically engages in an apology for her former work. I really had to shed the ego. And now I think of myself, what a terror I was when I designed these shiny corporate buildings. And it goes on. De Laurence Scafidio, Woods Bagot designed Aboriginal Art and Culture Centre for Adelaide. Indigenous design principles embedded in the British Columbia student housing. I can't see any. And even formerly perfectly respectable narcissists now engage in a kind of form of virtue signaling. Hadid Architects unveils model tent classrooms for refugees. And all of that combined, in a way, reminds me of a situation in pop music that existed in the 1980s. It reminds me of Michael Jackson's "We Are the World, We Are the Children." Let's make the world a better place for you and for me and the entire human race. It's, of course, a ghastly moment in music. And I seriously wonder if we are living through the same ghastly moment in architecture. Looks never deceive, I guess. This is another interesting linguistic point. Sustainability shouldn't be some kind of moral sacrifice, a political dilemma, or philanthropic goal. It has to be a design challenge. And for that reason, the concept of hedonistic sustainability exists. The mixture of environmental ecology and fun, two commonly thought incompatible phenomena, organized fun for the ecologically aware. Now, anybody with a vague knowledge of antiquity, with a vague knowledge of ancient Greek, knows that the term hedonism is utterly incompatible with sustainability. The definition of hedonism is the belief that pleasure is the most important thing in life. The hedonistic philosophy of eat, drink, and be merry, for tomorrow we die. And in case you wondered, this is what hedonism looks like. And in a way, it always did. So this is the situation that my book tries to address, tries to critically evaluate. The book has 10 chapters, which in a way discuss terms which have dominated the architectural discourse successively, I guess, since the turn of the century. Architecture, world-class, excellence, sustainability, well-being, livability, placemaking, creativity, beauty, and innovation. It starts with the architects, with the Guggenheim in Bilbao, where supposedly the architect was a demiurge, a magician who could single-handedly change the fate of an entire city. It ends in Silicon Valley, where computer nerds are planning the redundancy of the architect in the form of AI. Now, knowing that the first was never true, I draw strange comfort from the certainty that therefore the latter will also never happen, and that therefore architecture will perpetually inhabit a space in between, from omnipotence to one of non-existence. And that is what the book is about, Architect Verb. Somebody's ringing the doorbell, very well timed.